This is the fourth time that we're doing a book review. The last book review was called Why the Jews, and that is a book basically detailing the history of anti-Semitism from the time of the Bible and onward through the evolution of the pagan Christianity, Enlightenment, Islam, etc. So since we're moving to another book now, and the book is called Catch the Jew, have you had the chance to read that book?
No, not, and I just got the review, so I no. The answer is no, not really. Other than I looked at the introduction, That's
okay, wonderful, wonderful. So the book Catch the Jew was recommended to me the last time I was in Israel, which was in September of this year, by my tour guide. And at the beginning, I was telling him, yes, kind of, I'll read it. And I was not really intending to, because I have so many books on my list. I'm a physician. I have to read a lot of medical books. But then I said, you know what? I really like him. I should look into what he recommended. And I started reading it, and the guy is absolutely fantastic. Not only is he funny, but he's able to describe the situation in Israel. And I lived in Israel, the way that you can only understand if you can get into the minds of the different players on the map. And he's able to really get into the heart and soul of both the Palestinians, the Zionists, if you want to call that group that way, the Haredim, the anti-Zionist Jews, and describe the entire situation, and basically holding no punches back and describing objectively what he sees, and then giving his own thoughts about what he experiences. And because this book is not something that one can, in my opinion, simply review as historical facts, what my goal was to take few of the situations that he was in and then see how we would experience it, or how we would want to explain or analyze, conclude from those situations. So before that, I had a little introduction, and you had the chance to read. You read the introduction, or you read the directly excerpts from the book?
No, for purposes of this, I didn't absorb much of anything. Okay,
it's fine, and everybody's busy. First of all, I also want to say that when we started that, the reason I started that was because I was asked to stand for a friend of mine who was sick, and was asked to talk to young Jews in Chabad that were writing letters to the Israeli soldiers. And he was a lone soldier in 2001, right when September 11th happened. He was already organized to go to Israel. He applied a year before that, and he was unable to go. So I went instead, and I started talking to them, and I realized the huge gap that was missing in this youth, and the gap was on basic ideas, even on our customs around holidays. So I decided that we need more knowledge, because otherwise they come in as an empty page to schools, and no wonder that they are lost to their parents, who complain to me with bitter tears that they can't talk to their children because it seems like they are completely taken over by this ideology that is irrational. We're talking about an ideology that Israel or Zionism is racism and occupiers. And this is even from their schools, where they were taught by Jewish teachers history. And the history was begun at around the time of the late 1900s, 1882, with the first wave of modern Zionism. And there was basically, she said, nobody talked to. And we're talking about Stuyvesant, we're talking about some of the high-end schools that they raised them to be able to go to, and then they end up losing them. And the question is it worthwhile now, as I'm looking for my third child, which school to go to, and I'm talking to my friends, which schools they are sending their kids, they're actually sending them more to Jewish religious schools, even though the older kids did not go to such schools because they feel like they're being taken away from them and they're being brainwashed by the other secular schools. So anyway,
questions while we go, or should we save questions?
No, go ahead. Go ask the questions.
When this thing you just said about how the younger people are are critical of Zionism and Israel being colonialist, all that, what time frame is very important to? So you're talking younger people. But is that a current viewpoint, or was it 10 years ago, or you know what I mean? In other words,
yeah, no, it's an excellent question. We're talking about both current right now, since October 7th, when the discussions again surfaced up, because before the parents did not really think about that. They never thought there was a problem. They didn't feel the anti-Semitism in such a clear manner. I mean, there were cases here, there, unfortunately, that we say those words that we even accept them. But, there will be a swastika here, someone will be named names. They'll obviously, we know that the massacres that happened in New Jersey, that they claimed were those two African-American people just didn't like the fact that there were Jews living there. It wasn't the case. They were scoping the neighborhood. They were analyzing, they were specifically targeting a Jewish place, and they had enough ammunition to go to the Jewish school that was above that store. So there were a lot of incidents, both in the synagogue or in the machete, a guy with a machete that came in and was trying to cut with that huge sword people in the synagogue. So there were events like that, but it was, I don't know, I would say, I guess we were, in a way, it was our way of life. We were accepting it. But now, even in October, they're still feeling that way.
Well, I agree with the theme of the book. It helps us appreciate anti-Semitism, but the book was not written since October 7th.
No, the book is October 18, 2018. Forgive me. The book was published.
Okay. Unfortunately, those things haven't changed in many ways. Just the events are different, of course. But the point, when you get, I'm just maybe getting ahead of you or ahead of myself. Sometimes when you bring education about why Israel is not genocidal and why is not apartheid and why it is not colonialism in the context of the history, sometimes people listen and often they don't listen. You know what I mean? They've already decided Israel is bad. I mean, in other words, when we read this book, or I read these kind of books, it gives me information to have a discussion, but I also learned that some people and I'm guilty of that too, by the way. You're not going to convince me to dislike Israel, so therefore their viewpoint won't convince me. But the important part is to gather proper information to have a good discussion. I guess that's why I was interested in the time frame, which you answered already. That's all.
That is very wise. What you said is very wise, but that's why it's important that we educate ourselves so we can educate our children, and then we can see those who are willing to have an open mind and look objectively at the facts. They will therefore be able to make the right decision. So anyway, let's just go straight into that. And what I wanted to do is start by reviewing the introduction first. And if you do have a question, please ask any of those questions as we go through. So introduction, prelude to our next book club, where we will review Catch the Jew by Tuvia Tenenbom. So we have read Why the Jews First, since perhaps it provides us with some context to begin to understand the climate of what is happening in Israel and highlighted in the book we are about to discuss. So brief review of Arab modern anti-Semitism, historical facts would be useful, and they're basically quoted from the book Why the Jews, since some of the people were not with us when we discussed that. Only through the understanding of the deep theological, and I quote that book, roots of Muslim anti-Semitism and an awareness of its continuous history can present-day Muslim hatred of Israel be understood. Only then does one recognize how false are the claims of Israel's enemies that prior to Zionism, Jews and Muslims lived in harmony, and that neither Islam nor Muslims have ever harbored Jew hatred. The creation of the Jewish state in no way created Muslim-Jew hatred. It merely intensified it and gave it a new focus. As so often in Jewish history, it is the Jewish nation's existence, as we discussed the three pillars of Judaism, which are on trial: the Torah, God, and nationhood. At different times, they try to separate them, but they're always the reason why there is anti-Semitism. And they're undivided parts of what being a Jew is. You can't say to an Italian, you know, you're an Italian, but your country, you don't have no right to live in Italy, or Italy is not your country. The same thing, you can't tell a Jew that Israel is not part of our heritage or not part of our being. And that arouses the hatred. So the Jewish nation's existence is what arouses hatred and needs to be ended. Despite peace treaties between Israel and Egypt, 1979, and with Jordan in 1994, for most Muslims, the source of their hatred remains the Jewish state's existence, not its politics, not even its borders, as we can see as they scream from the river to the sea. We discussed the Quran's message by Muhammad, who first admired and said himself that the Jews are the source of his idea of monotheism. And he stuck to many of the Jewish ways of prayer. He prayed toward Jerusalem. He kept the holiest day, the Yom Kippur fast. But when he realized this, they're not going to accept him as their prophet, he started saying things that made its way into the Quran. So in Surah chapter 9, line 30, he says, Jews pray to Ezra and say that he is the son of God. Thus, therefore, they are not true monotheists. Now, if you ask today modern day Jews who is Ezra, most of them won't know who the prophet Ezra is. I mean, Alan, do you know who Ezra is? You have to take it off the mic.
Sorry, I thought Ezra was the author who helped canonize the Tanakh. Ezra, no?
He was a sofer. He was from Babylon, and we're talking about probably around 530, 540 before the Common Era, and he somewhere around that 400 before 480 before the Common Era, he arrived to Israel in the second wave of Jews, and he started reading the Bible, but he did not canonize it. He started reading the Bible to the Jews in every morning, and he made the rule that Jews should not intermarry, because they began to intermarry with the locals that were inhabiting the area after the Assyrians and the Babylonians exiled the Jews. So the Assyrians exiled the Jews, the 10 tribes, in 722 BC, and then the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar II, exiled them in 586 during the destruction of the first temple. So there were the Shomronim and others who moved in there, and they started intermarrying when the Jews came back, and they stopped following the laws. They even forgot the Jewish laws. So he said, you know what, you have to annul those marriages, and you have to actually follow the rules. So that's what he did. But no one, I mean, you know more than anyone that I've spoken to in the secular world about.
And that time frame was between the first and second temple. If it's 530, that's 50 years after the destruction of the first temple.
Right. So that's around that time. I would say probably more like 480, around 480, 460, something like that, because they were out in Babylon before Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, conquered Babylon and actually allowed the Jews to get back. The Jews believed that Balfour was the next kind of Cyrus when he declared in 1917 the Balfour Declaration. So anyway, so obviously no one in the Jewish religion believes that Ezra is the son of God, and nowhere if you Google it, it's they won't say that. The next thing that he says is Jews purposefully omitted the prophecy mouthed by Abraham about Muhammad's coming. So he accused the Jews for removing something from the Bible. And we know that even if one little comma is missing from the Bible, the entire Bible has to be buried. You cannot use that Bible. So saying something like that is really blasphemy against the Jews, and it's a lie. But he then added the words to the Bible where Abraham is supposedly mouthing the prophecy that Muhammad is going to come and going to be the last prophet. Then he says all the laws that were given to the Jews were as a punishment for their bad behavior. Therefore, Muslims don't need to follow these laws. This was in Surah chapter 4, line 160. So he basically repeats what Paul was saying, that the many laws that were given to the Jews were given to them as punishment because of their bad behavior, which is obviously doesn't make sense, because we were in the desert when we got the laws. We got them because the 613 mitzvot by Moses, which he mentions over 100 times in the Quran, and he believes himself to be following him. And Moses was a Muslim, Abraham was a Muslim, he believes as well. And another thing that he says, which has been repeated by many of the Muslims, especially the presidents, both Nasser and Sadat. Sadat said it to his army in 1972 as he was preparing them to eventually attack in 1973 on the Yom Kippur War. He said to them, and humiliation and wretchedness were stamped upon them. So this is in Surah chapter 2, line 61. He says like that, Muhammad, and humiliation and wretchedness were stamped upon them, meaning the Jews, and they were visited with wrath from Allah. And humiliation and wretchedness was stamped upon them. So this was also in Surah chapter 22, verse 23. So quickly we will review it. The two guiding principles of Islam's treatment of Jews and Christians, both considered dhimmis, which is second-class citizens, are that Islam dominates and is not dominated by them, and that Jews and Christians are to be subservient and degraded. So we reviewed the humiliating yellow belts, different color shoes that they were making the women wear, the yellow belt the men, the 5-pound balls on the neck that they had to wear, the 2 feet wide cross, arms 2 feet wide that the Christians had to wear, the brass bells on the shoes or on the neck of Jewesses, the conical hat, forcing the Jews to clean the sewers in Yemen while having the children throw stones at them, something they called an ada, a religious custom, which therefore they refused the Turks in 1872 when they said they should stop it. They said, this is a religious custom. And since the Turks were not involved in changing any religious customs, they end up keeping that custom. Forcing the Jews to dress in beggars' clothing. Jews had to walk on the left of the Muslim, which is associated with the devil, not have synagogues in visible areas, not raise their voices as they follow the dead, or show their religious books in public. This was the same thing towards the Christians, not allowing to raise their voices or have their house of worship. Jews made into laughing spectacles. So, for example, this is in the 800s. So if Islam came in the 7th century, Muhammad was born sometimes in the late 6th century. Can't remember exactly the date, 570, something like that. They were made into, this is the example of how they expressed it in 807. The rule of humiliation and wretchedness will be stamped upon them. So the tax receipt stamped on their neck. They would stamp that tax receipt when they would go to the emir to pay the taxes. They had a rule, they had to pay the money with the palm on the bottom. The emir would grab it from the top, then he would slap him, and then he would put the guard would push him off the space, and it was supposed to be all watched as a spectacle. This was part of the entire process, the ritual. They had to actually watch it to make sure that they follow that custom. And this was during the Pact of Umar. The Pact of Umar was created in 702 CE. In Baghdad. So if walking on a narrow street, a Jew must walk into the road and give right of way to the Muslims. Judah the Nasi, the famous poet, Yehuda Halevi from Spain, as a matter of fact, when he ended up writing about the Kuzari, the famous story about the 7th century, I believe it's 7th or 9th century king of Khuzaria that was located between Russia and Turkey, that ended up deciding how to take the religion on himself and end up deciding for himself, not forcing his subject, but deciding for himself to take the Jewish religion. And he tells about the story. And at the end of it, he tells that he's going to go to Israel, to Zion. And he indeed goes ahead to Zion. And there in Jerusalem, as he gets to Jerusalem, he does not move because he was a famous guy in Spain. He had respect. So he thought kind of like the same respect will be allotted him in Israel when he came. And he did not move. He did not move on to the road when he was walking on the street, and he was pushed on the road, and he was killed by a Muslim horseman. That was his punishment for not following those demi kind of laws that were in fact practiced in Israel at that time. So where we're now. It continues until Jews come, right, so this is the degradation that they had. And then each Jew had to have a stamp of lead hang also from his neck, on which the words demi was inscribed. This was 1075 to 96 AD in Baghdad, right, CE. And all this happened from 807 onward, only 1 century after Islam was created, with ups and downs, mostly downs to the humiliated Jews and Christians. And it continued until Jews once more became the masters of their fate in their ancestral homeland, Israel. If Zionism is credited with hatred of Muslims for Jews, and even if we begin before Theodor Herzl's realization and petition to end anti-Semitism by making Jews like all the other nations of the world by simply having their own country, after he saw the Dreyfus affair in 1887, even then, if we begin just in the 19th century agricultural community of 1882, during the Ottoman control of the land, we still see the roots of this Quranic decree in the pervasive attitude towards the Jews. And this is something that was written by the British consul, James Finn. So anti-Jewish laws, taxes, and practices had a rather intimidating effect on the Jews. The British consul, James Finn, who lived in Jerusalem in the 1850s, right? So that's before 1948, before, Zionism is even, because if we're saying that Zionism was first by Theodor Herzl invented, right? Or by the first time when the agricultural return, 1882, Rishon LeZion community that was created, then we're looking right before, right, 1850s, describing in his book Stirring Times how, and I quote, Arab merchants would dump their unsold wares on their Jewish neighbors and bill them, safe in the knowledge that the Jews so feared them that they would not dare return the items or deny their purchase. Well, because what they would do is, in one word, they would say that they said blasphemy, they omitted bad words against the prophet, and they would be dead, they would be killed. Jew status under Islam in the 20th century, roughly speaking, and in the best of cases, the Jew is protected like a dog, which is part of a man's property. But if he raises his head or acts like a man, then he must be beaten so that he will always remember his status. This is reported by Albert Memmi, a famous French Jewish novelist from North Africa. And this is the list of what was happening. So if we're looking now at October 7th and we're saying to yourself, okay, this is all because Israel is occupying their land. Let's just take that road. Let's say we will follow that line of thinking. And before then, Jews were living safely and well. Well, we see what happened since 702 during the Pact of Umar, 807, when they made those laws with the yellow belts that eventually made to the yellow circle in the Christian world, and by the Nazis picking it up. They really didn't invent anything new. They just utilized what they had from before by the Christian laws.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
No, when you use the word occupy, I recently read that there's a principle in Islam that it comes back to the period of Muhammad, that when land is occupied, it's always occupied. I mean, it's owned by. So part of the narratives which are disconnected, in my opinion, is that the 1947, 1948 narrative that describes the dividing of Israel into two parts, right? That the Arabs rejected, is connected, in my mind, that the United Nations had no authority in the eyes of the practice of Islam to actually, because Muhammad captured all those lands in the year 700 or 800. I'm bringing up how some of these narratives have disconnects when I bring this up.
That's a very, very good point, because perhaps this sheds some light to some of the calls that you hear. And I understand there are people who are more extremists or read the Quran more literally, or those laws more literally, because they say, and Spain will be ours, and all the other countries will be ours. So Israel is really the beginning. It's not the end of their megalomaniac desires. I mean, that's why the ISIS was trying to recreate the time of Saladin the Great, when they were all united.
And
so they want to take Turkey.
Hamas too.
Yes.
And Hamas follows that same thought process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for bringing it out. Very, very true. Thank you. So here he goes. Albert Memmi is describing, and this is all documented in Arab newspapers. Morocco, 1907, huge massacre of Jews took place in Casablanca, along with the usual embellishments. Rape, women carried away into the mountains, hundreds of homes and shops burned, etc. 1912, big massacre in Fez. In Algeria, 1934, massacre in Constantine, 24 people killed, dozens and dozens of others seriously wounded. In Aden, 1946, over 100 people, this is all before 48, before 47 even, over 100 people dead and 76 wounded, and 2/3 of the stores sacked and burned. In June 1941, in Iraq, 600 people killed, 1,000 seriously wounded, looting, rape, arson, thousands of houses destroyed, 600 stores looted. Libya, November 4th and 5th, 1945, massacre in Tripoli. November 6th and 7th in Zanzur, Algeria, in Zawi, Morocco, Fausber, Ziltaim, etc. Girls and women raped in front of their families, repeating exactly the same thing. This is 1945. Stomachs of pregnant women slashed open, infants ripped out of the stomachs, children smashed with crowbars. All this can be found in the newspapers of the time, including the local Arab papers. On August 17, 1956, the French newspaper Le Monde quoted the government-controlled Damascus daily, Al-Manar, as observing, "One should not forget that in contrast to Europe, Hitler occupied an honored place in the Arab world. Journalists are mistaken if they think that by calling Nasser, at that time the president of Egypt, by calling Nasser Hitler, they are hurting us. On the contrary, his name makes us proud. Long live Hitler, the Nazi who struck at the heart of our enemies. Long live the Hitler, meaning Nasser, of the Arab world." So this is something that basically echoed then and is being resurfacing now. 21st century Muslim hate of Israel. Article 32, and now by now everybody knows that stuff, of the 1988 Palestinian Hamas, the Islamic Resistance Movement covenant, claims that the Zionist quote-unquote scheme for takeover of the Arab world has been laid out in the protocols of the elders of Zion, and their present conduct is the best proof of what is said there. Hamas literature repeatedly accused Jews of controlling the world's wealth and its most important media, and using them to promote Jewish and Zionist interests. Now, obviously, we can see this is wrong, because if we were promoting it, then in the media we would be taking center stage and not backstage, like unfortunately we are right now. You see a lot of the movie actors, etc. Unfortunately, we never really spent money or time trying to educate them, because we're too busy trying to help the entire world, either with money, donations that we share with everyone, going to Africa, going to countries that really have civil unrest where there is indeed genocide, not where it is bogus, created just in order to, like all the other libels against the Jews, to
Could you
simply
just
hurt us.
clarify when you say, you use the word they, and you referred to the fact we haven't worked hard enough to educate them. Who is the they that we haven't helped educate?
Well, we haven't worked on the people who are considered, unfortunately, role models and are the spokesperson for the media, for the things that, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Hollywood, whether it is, I mean, we even lost our own Jewish actresses who were in Hollywood. The actress
Susan Sarandon and the other one, yeah.
Not Susan Sarandon, from Long Island she was.
Oh yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
They threw the one that the union or the association threw both of them out based on what they said this week, right? You're talking about those two women?
I don't know whether they threw her out, but she was in Black Swan. She played, I mean, a really very talented actress. Married a French ballet master, but then they divorced or something like that. Had a kid with him. Natalie Portman. So Natalie,
different story. Okay, the other two.
Natalie Portman refused to receive an award given to some of the people who are big representative of Israel and of the Jews, because she said that she does not believe that she should support Israel, and this is before this entire situation is happening. So we're so sure that the truth will speak for itself that we did not spend time and money to prep up the truth. We never really thought that we need to battle it. We thought this is a fringe issue that we don't need to pay attention to. We need to go on and improve the world. I mean, heal. I mean, I was never involved really in this education because I'm involved in healing people, in medicine, trying to create stuff. I'm not trying to boast, but to my knowledge, from the last time I did the research, which was probably about 6 months ago, I'm the first person in history who was able to prove that you can reverse biological age, not just slow down the aging process, but reverse the biological age. But that's what I was working on, Then another thing that I'm doing now, and I offered, by the way, if you know anybody in Israel that will hear, I was willing to go to Israel, but I found a way that I can make burns, like really deep burns. People come to me a week after. It looks like, I mean, I've treated those things before. They would have a scar forever, and I'm able to treat it, and it looks like it disappears completely without a mark. So I'm able to really do some crazy stuff, but that's what I want to do, to help everybody, not just Jews, not just Christians, not just Muslims, but help everybody.
This sounds like, if I can interrupt, this sounds like the kind of research and work that the Technion would want to,
anyone would want to do that. But the point is that we all are people of the world. We're putting effort for everyone. We're not just trying to do it for the Jews or trying to control the world, like, the propaganda is trying to say. But this diverts us because I believe that my time, and you can ask my family, I've become, unfortunately, a ghost in some of our family occasions, because I am constantly occupied with the idea of how I can change the reality on the ground. How can I make people see the truth? How can I return some safety back to our people around the world? In the United States, we never thought that we'll be watching this anti-Semitism.
Can I ask another question? There's another face been on this screen from the beginning and is not participating. Is that just a duplicate of your computer, or is there somebody listening quietly? You don't know. Hello?
Ina.
Yeah.
I have some people listening in on the Instagram as well. I mean, you can see the Instagram.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So how many people are getting the benefit of your teaching? I'm enjoying your teaching.
This is you're very kind. This is recorded, so they are watching it. I've had over 6,000 people watch the videos or click on them. I don't know if they watch that to the end.
Okay, so we're not dealing, there's a person here who's being shy and not showing her face or talking. This other person, I know, no, okay. It's just,
Ina, yes.
no, people sometimes don't show their face, but they also participate. She's not doing
Right,
either.
right. Sometimes they participate, and sometimes maybe they don't speak so well in English, and they don't feel comfortable.
Understand. Okay, I didn't want to distract you,
because
but I'm
because
just
I
curious.
I believe I know that person, so maybe they stepped out and they just keep the video
I've
live.
done
Anyway,
that. I've done that myself. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
yes, no, thank you for the question. And we're doing it at this hour just because it's Thanksgivings, and I usually do it from 8:15 to 9:15 in the evening when I come back from work on Thursdays. But this
Where
Thursday
are
it's
you
Thanksgivings.
Where are you geographically?
Geographically, I'm
Where
in New York. Right now,
you're
I'm in Aruba on a vacation. So I left the beach so we can do that book club.
okay, okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you, thank you.
I'm in
And my friends
California.
already
I'm in
told me some of them.
California. I'm in California, and either of your times generally can work except for conflicts. So I put it in for the other time for the next week if I can join it. Yeah. I'm just
That's
having
very kind.
trouble getting
That's
to reading the books. So I'm sort of cheating by learning from you without reading the books.
most of the people are doing that, and this is completely fine. And I realize that, and we're supposed to we're going already over time, but since it's just you and me, I don't mind doing that. So it's up to you.
What time was it supposed to end? I'm sorry. What?
1:30, but we don't have
Oh,
I
okay.
don't have a
Okay.
limit.
I have something coming up, so we have a few more minutes. Okay, thank you.
All right, my pleasure. So let's just we didn't get to that step. So 21st century Muslim hate of Israel. We discussed about the Hamas. The next one is the 2000 Palestinian-Iran newspaper Al Hayat Al Jadida, the official newspaper of the Palestinian Authority, and therefore supposedly less extreme than Hamas. Even during the height of the Oslo peace process, right? So 2000, right? That's when the 2001, when the peace process was going on with Clinton and Ehud Barak. Even during that time, when they were doing those discussions, the paper published the following: "It is important to conduct the conflict according to the foundations which both are leaning on." It goes on, particularly the Jews, such as the Torah, the Talmud, and the protocols of Zion. This conflict resembles the conflict between man and Satan, meaning the Jews are the Satan, and then men are the other people. In 2001, Egypt, Al Haram, the country's largest newspaper, reported, quote unquote, I'm quoting, a compilation of the investigative work of 4 reporters on Jewish control of the world states that the Jews have become the political decision makers and control the media in most capitals of the world: Washington, Paris, London, Berlin, Athens, Ankara. As the journalist Andrew Sullivan comments, he's commenting on that report by the Al Haram Egypt newspaper. It is worth noting that every word Al Haram prints is vetted and approved by the Egyptian government. This is a government we have peace with, right? A regime to which the United States, meaning you and I, contribute $2 billion a year. So this is in 2001. That's what they're saying. So anyway, that was kind of like the prelude before we get to the story that I wanted to discuss, and perhaps I will, yeah, I can start reading it. He's describing how he takes a cab. The cab brings him to the gate because he tells him he's a Muslim. So he brings him to the gate. He's not sure what means the gate, but he'll find it soon where it is. And he speaks Arabic, he speaks Hebrew, German, Yiddish. And so he goes in there and he says, and I'm quoting, Cabby takes him to the gate. He finds the gate, and why did the cabbie drop me before the gate? His question. I don't know. What I do know is this: at the gate there are cops, Israeli cops. Are you a Muslim? One of them asks. I am, I answer without hesitation. Know the Quran? Of course. Show me. How in the world am I supposed to show him? And why should I? But he has a gun and I don't. So I say, Ashadu Allah Ilya wa ashadu an Muhammad al Rasulah. I testify that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. This is a declaration of faith, and according to Islamic law, if a man says this, he becomes a Muslim, in case he isn't yet. This should satisfy the gun holder, but the problem is that cops are no imams, and religious law is not their domain. Say the Fatiha, he barks at me, as if I were a Jewish dog. It's been a long time since I studied Islam, and I don't exactly remember it beyond the very beginning. Who does he think he is? Allah? Why should I pray to him? I don't, and he talks to his colleague, discussing why I behave so strangely. They talk, and finally they decide, you're a Christian, no entry. But I want to pray to Allah. Well, they say, if I want to pray that much, I should enter the mosque via the Jewish and Christian entrance. But the infidels' entrance, I protest, closes at 11 a.m. in 55 minutes. The cops are not impressed. The walk is only 29 minutes from here, one of them says, and he points at the road I should take. I look at the name of the road, Via Dolorosa. I am to walk the way that old Jew Christ. He walks, finds another entrance about 30 minutes later, also only for Muslims. Again, he goes through the same thing. And it's very, very funny. But he's being told to do this, the Fatiha, and they decide that he's half Arab, half Christian. The Arabs, so what he says is, this is funny, he says, because he says, it's funny that the Arabs dictate to the occupiers, the Jew, that they, the Jews, must protect them, the Arabs, from their brethren, the other Jews, and from the Christians. So he's like, you know what? This is hilarious how this is happening, and we're being told to protect it. So the question is, why are they saying that we are occupying them when in fact we are, in a way, almost removing the rights of the Jews while protecting the rights of the Muslims?
Well, but it's a theological question, not a international borders question.
No, I agree.
It's a disconnect. I mean, you and I think of it as international borders, but that's not the only way to look at it. We've come to appreciate, of course.
Correct. So if we look at it even as a theological way, how in this can you call this an apartheid state? I mean, it looks like a reverse apartheid. I mean, you're actually preventing the Jews from entering areas that are, under certain control. There's only certain gates to the Jews.
That's
Muslims
right.
can enter through every gate. But the Jews and Christians, only one. What?
But they decide to use this negative word to convey something that's a bad thing that you can't let. In the case of South Africa, they don't allow blacks to go wherever they want. Here, you're pointing out that the Jews are being restricted into Area
right.
C.
That's what I'm saying. So it's.
I know, but this is ignorance. This is underlying principle of some of this has to do with. Now, back to your point about educating people. You have to get them to listen before you can educate them, of course.
Right, but I think the problem is that many of those people who went there, they never seen Israel to begin with. They never visited Israel.
That's true, but the international organization that caused Israel to be apartheid, I forgot the name of it.
Claimed Israel is apartheid, I mean.
Yeah, but a few years ago, this big deal, they claimed it. These people are knowledgeable enough that they shouldn't have done that, but they did it anyway. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Don't be sorry.
I lost my thought. Okay, go ahead.
No. You got the thought, and I agree with you. It's a problem because they use words we don't defend it vocally enough. Because unlike what they're claiming, we do not control the media, we do not control the people, and therefore we lose the battle, the media battle, and we're starting really far behind when they're much closer to the finish line, which is they're trying to finish us. We're battling very hard, but we're battling from a point of where we were sleeping before. We just woke up, feels like. So let me move quickly. What he's trying to do now is trying to look for a place to go to pee, but he's not allowed to go to pee. And this 6-year-old is also asking him if he's a Jew or not a Jew, if he's Muslim or not. And he decides, like, he wants to kind of send him away, but he's like, you never know in this land who is who and who may be who. So
this is continuing the story about going from gate to gate to decide which gate to go to.
Well, he wants to go just to in, and then eventually he goes in through the infidels gate, and then he tries to evade the Israeli police that are clearing up the area,
which is considered. I'm interpreting this to be the gates of the old city as you walk around the.
No. Those are special gates to allow them to enter into the Al-Aqsa area, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa.
So when you said 30 minutes, I was reminded, if I might diverge a little, one Shabbat afternoon about 10 years ago, I had nothing to do, and I took a liter of water and I walked around the outside of the old city. And so if I were to guess the time it takes from Jaffa to Damascus and then the Muslim entrance and then so for the dung and around, some of it's more than 30 minutes, but some of it isn't more than 30 minutes. And so I was just trying to picture my own experience. It took me about 2 hours. Part of it is that when you're in East Jerusalem, you're not right up next to the wall, or at least I'm talking about 10 years ago. So,
I agree.
A little bit longer than just the wall, but the image I had was this person is being constrained as to where he's allowed to come in. I don't know which gate is considered infidels because they don't have that title, but they, all the non-Muslim ones would be infidel, I suppose, right?
Yes, so yes, Christians and Jews, yes.
And dung, the Jewish one, would all be infidel. So I get that. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to share my what I was interpreting of what you read. That's all.
Right, and he says the same thing. He's passing them, and 29 minutes already passed, and he didn't get to. He finds another gate, but it's only Muslim gate, and so he keeps going through the same thing, and then they tell him, "No, keep going. The gate is onward. You have to find another gate to enter. There's guards over there at that specific gate." So 11 o'clock passes. He makes it. I keep on going around the square and the surrounding area. Look like paradise here. Every few steps there is a sign in Arabic only, reminding believers that it's forbidden to spit here. I'm not sure why there is a need for so many signs forbidding the act of spitting, but I guess the locals like to spit. I don't know. 11 o'clock soon passes, and I successfully evade the Israeli police, who by this time have cleared the area of non-believers. Slowly, I make my way to pray a little for the Arabs, the Christians, and the Jews. As I reach the dome, an Arab catches me. "Your time is over," he yells. "Out of here." And just before this guy, too, tells me to recite the Fatiha, I decide I've had enough and make a U-turn. I walk out, crossing pathways that are magnificent in their beauty. I realize I'm unwittingly approaching another entry to the mosque. An Arab kid, maybe 6 years old, stops me. "Are you Muslim?" he demands. "Yep." Now I have to recite the Fatiha to a kid. Go get busy with Facebook. I cursed him in my heart, but say nothing. This is a holy city, and this kid may be a prophet. That's the last thing I need in life, to get into a fight with a prophet. And so he keeps going around. He makes it into coffee shops. He drinks coffee, after which he wants to go to the bathroom even more. So he asks him if he can go urinate. He says, "Do you have a place to pee?" He says, "No, you need to go to the Al-Aqsa." So he says, "Yeah, but they don't let me in." He says, "Are you Muslim?" He says, "Yes." So they should let you in. He says, "Do you have a passport?" He says, "No, I don't have a passport." Well, you need to find another place to go to the Jewish place. You have to go outside the wall and go to the Jewish place so you can pee. And so he keeps going on. And then as he's walking out of the coffee house in the direction of the Jewish wall, I see Arabic graffiti on an Arab wall outside of the coffee shop. "Soon Al-Quds will be free!" Exclamation point. Al-Quds, meaning the holy, is Jerusalem. Free means free of Jews. And I wonder, who's going to protect the mosque from people like me once the Jews are out? Allah knows. 3 little girls, maybe 5 years old, pass by. They're very beautiful, like little angels, and all 3 are dressed in a hijab. Such an early age, and they are already considered a sexual temptation, he's thinking to himself. I need a toilet, and I would rather not go to churches, Jewish walls, or Arab walls. There must be a toilet here. And so he makes his way into this place. There is a guard. It looks like a pretty place. So he decides to go in. Unbeknownst to him, he's walking into Al-Quds University. He just didn't know that. And there's a lecture. And what he's describing there is that there are professors over there that, and like 2 students only. So the number of professors to students is something that you never see in any university. There is like a couple of professors for every single student, and all of it is paid by the Europeans. And so he starts wondering, what are the Europeans paying for? And we can, you know, we're already over time, and I know you have other things to do, so I'm going to stop it right here, and I'm going to just put a little note over here. We're on page 21 of that book, and we can get back to it at another time. But honestly, this book is a must read, because what he discovers, and I would just share some of the next stops that he's going to go. He's going to go through the university. He's talking there to the guy, and you can see as he asks him the question, the people themselves start answering them and realizing that they're making no sense, and they don't like it when they're caught for making no sense. They're blaming Jews for what Muslims have done for them.
This is a general problem in humans having a discussion. People don't like to be, it's how you bring someplace along when they are wrong, without saying to them, you are wrong. I mean,
right.
Sometimes that works, but the hard part is when it doesn't work. Yeah. And I'm not good at it. I just know it's a problem.
Yeah, I'm not good with that. Carnegie's book, How to Influence People and
Yeah,
Friends.
I should reread that. Maybe that would help. Some of the articles we get to live in civil society these days, and is I don't know. Maybe I'm too old to be patient at this point, but it's very frustrating. Thank you so much for the teaching. I'll try to join your. I have it in my calendar now, and I see sometimes there's conflicts, but I hope it would also be good if 3 or 4 people would actively interact.
Usually there are more people. There are usually about 5-7 people joining, but the timing. The timing is not right for them. They're all working. They told me, actually texted me, apologized that they could not join. Okay. But Alan, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Nice to meet you. I look forward to joining you again. Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye. By the way, if you can see this shirt that I'm wearing.
Okay.
I stand with Israel. I was on the beach walking with that shirt and in the elevator, and I can't tell you how many people supported it and showed me thumbs up. And when we were playing tennis, the tennis coach told me that Aruba specifically supports Israel, and that because of that, they had a parade for Israel. They received threats in the airport that they will be bombing, and so they had to put the airport in high alert because of that stuff. So their tactics, if they don't like something, is to try and intimidate and scare.
It's a very difficult thing, because you don't want to have something unsafe do, but it's also important to stand up. So it's good to have a report from Aruba. I can share that with some other people in New York, I was in New York last weekend, and I actually went to 2 groups to support Israel. One was outside the UN Secretary General's home. There was a gathering to promote the release of hostages. And then also I went to the JCC on the west side for Havdalah, and the speakers from the hostage families were there too. So I know in New York,
thank you.
Of course, plenty of opposing voices too, but there's even louder voices for Israel, of course. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You live in New York City itself?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay, that's the same thing for me.
Yes,
okay.
Well, happy to meet you. If you're in New York again, please send me a message or text.
I will. I will. Anyway, thank you. I'll let you go. Enjoy your Thanksgiving too. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Bye.
Take care. Bye.